Welcome to The Explainer. For years, the Jeffrey Epstein story has been this black hole of secrets and speculation. But now, millions of pages of internal files have just been released. So today, we're going to cut through all that noise and figure out what they actually say. Yeah, you heard that right. Not too long ago, the Department of Justice unsealed an absolute mountain of evidence connected to Jeffrey Epstein, over 3.5 million pages. It is just an overwhelming amount of information. So the huge question is, what is really buried inside all of this? All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we need to get a handle on what these files even are. Then, we're going to dive deep into the biggest theories, the ones that have been swirling around this case for years. We'll uncover the documented conspiracy of silence. And finally, we'll ask what this all means for justice right now. Okay, so what are we even talking about when we say the Epstein Files? I think it's really important to get this straight. This isn't some single neat and tidy report. No, it's more like a chaotic puzzle box with pieces coming from all over the place. Just think of it like this massive digital attic. It is stuffed to the gills with documents from decades of federal cases, investigations into Epstein and his inner circle, and even a flood of totally unverified and sometimes pretty wild tips that people just sent to the FBI. And the scale of this thing is, well, it's staggering. We're talking more than 300 gigs of internal FBI data, thousands of videos, memos from prosecutors that were probably never supposed to see the light of day. And this sheer volume, this complexity, that's exactly why a clear picture has been so hard to find. Okay, so inside this massive archive, people have been hunting for answers to one of the most persistent questions of all. Was Jeffrey Epstein secretly working for an intelligence agency? This is the question, right? It's fueled so many theories for so many years. But for the very first time, buried deep in these files, we find the most specific and, honestly, the most explosive claim yet. Check this out. It's from document EFT02729954. It's a report from a confidential FBI informant, and the allegations in here are just stunning. It claims Epstein was a, quote, co-opted Mossad agent, that he was trained by a former Israeli prime minister, and, get this, that his own lawyer admitted he belonged to U.S. and allied intelligence. I mean, a total bombshell, right? But then you read the fine print. The FBI's own file has this little sentence tucked in there. These assertions are presented as claims and are not independently corroborated. And that single sentence, that's everything. That is the razor-thin line between a shocking allegation and actual hard evidence. And this brings us right to the stalemate we're in today. I mean, on one side, you've got the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee saying there is absolutely no evidence he was a spy. But on the other side, you have sitting members of Congress who are insisting Epstein had close ties to intelligence agencies. So the files give us this explosive claim, but they don't actually settle the debate. Not even close. So if the spy theory is still up in the air, what about the other huge public question? The one that's basically taken over social media. Do these files finally give us that infamous client list? Well, on this one, the files are actually pretty clear. According to the FBI's own summary reports, the answer is no. After all that searching, investigators did not find a single formalized client list used for some kind of systematic trafficking operation. So no master list. But what they did find was maybe even more complex. They found a web, a network pieced together from all these different sources. His notorious black book full of contacts, the flight logs from his private jet, his calendars, but most critically, the harrowing testimony from survivors about who they were forced to be with. And look, this is such a critical point to remember. Just because someone's name shows up in these documents, in a flight log or a calendar, it does not automatically mean they did anything wrong. A lot of these people were employees, business contacts, or maybe just dinner guests. Okay, so if there wasn't a secret list, the files do document a conspiracy. 100%. It's a very different kind of conspiracy. This was a conspiracy of repeated, systemic, institutional failure. I mean, just look at this timeline. The first known report against Epstein was made to the FBI by survivor Maria Farmer all the way back in 1996. And yet, a formal federal investigation wasn't opened for almost a decade. And what happens in between? Federal prosecutors secretly cook up this incredibly lenient plea deal that shielded not just Epstein, but his whole network. And then there's this little gem from the files. Just days after Epstein's 2019 arrest, something called a stand-down directive was issued. Federal authorities literally ordered the NYPD's Special Victims Unit, the people who handle these crimes every single day, to stop their own investigations and just turn everything over. Now, why does that matter? Because for a lot of critics, this is a smoking gun. It suggests that the flow of information was being deliberately controlled from the very top, maybe preventing a wider net from being cast for powerful co-conspirators. It just fits right into this long pattern of what many see as institutional interference. So, if the grand conspiracy wasn't some secret spy plot or a single, simple client list, what was it? Well, the files suggest the answer was hiding in plain sight the entire time. When you put all the pieces together, the real conspiracy that these files document becomes chillingly clear. It wasn't about spies. It was a system where powerful institutions, law enforcement, elite lawyers, global banks, all formed a shield of complicity and protection around a predator and his entire network. And look, this isn't speculation. This is all documented right here in the files. We're talking about prosecutors hiding a secret plea deal from victims, banks like JP Chase just looking the other way while processing hundreds of suspicious transactions, and a justice system that somehow failed for years to investigate a key player like Ghislaine Maxwell. And believe it or not, this whole story is far from over. Right now, behind closed doors, members of Congress are getting to view some of these files unredacted. But millions of pages, the full, uncensored picture, they're still locked away from you and me. So in the end, the Epstein files don't point to a single bad guy or a simple list. No, they document something far more disturbing: a corrupt ecosystem. A system designed from the ground up to protect the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. And that leaves us with the most critical and, frankly, unanswered question of all. Has that system really changed?